So this chat is by request because someone asked me in the comments on my last video, how did I even get into web development in the first place? What's my story, basically? And I looked back at my videos and I realized I really haven't done one on that, which is strange because it feels like I've talked about my story a lot, simply because I've been sharing the process, I suppose. I also wrote an article about how I got into it, I think, on LinkedIn. So I can put a link to that in the description, I guess. But anyway, here's the story. Nat and I moved south from North Dakota. He was an antique dealer, and I was a stay-at-home mime, stay-at-home mime. I was in a box. It was bad. Stay-at-home mom with 4 kids under the age of 5. So like 0, 1, 4, and 5, or something like that. No, even younger. No, anyway, 4 babies in 5 years. Let's put it that way. Anyway, and after we moved, Nat's antique business, it went kaput. It was not good. Like we moved to a bigger city, hoping there'd be more opportunities, a longer picking season because the weather, but leaving all our contacts and everything behind, we weren't able to catch up enough when we moved. So anyway, we tried thinking of other options, and one thing we realized after he started applying for jobs, he realized he really wasn't qualified for much at all. So he was driving Uber, and we realized, well, could join the military. That's what my dad did when he had a family to support. Um, and and we also realized that our kids in 4 years would be totally different, and life would be totally different because of it. So we really just had to survive for 4 years, just had to make it. So he was studying for the ASVAB, which is kind of like SATs for the military. And I remember looking over his shoulder at what he was studying, and it was an algebra problem. And I got really excited, and I just like pushed him out of the way. I said, "Let me solve for X, let me do it." And I had never been fond of math. Like, why was I so excited about this algebra problem? And it made me realize that I was bored. I was so bored. Which is crazy because I was busy all day, every day. I was like 24/7 on call, nurse and teacher and tour guide and whatever to all these young children. I never sat down. I went to the chiropractor and he said, "Oh yeah, you're right. You never do sit down." Like, no, I don't sit down. If I sit down, I become a target. um, anyway, I was busy, but I was bored. My brain was bored. Um, I needed a problem to solve. I wanted to organize things. I wanted to figure things out and learn and, all this stuff. So that was a pivotal point for me, just that realization. And the same thing kind of happened to other women in my family. My mom kind of was in the same situation. She was a stay-at-home mom of 3 children, and and then and she went to school and got her master's degree in computer science. And my sister also, like, she started out thinking that she was interested in English and different soft things like that, and then she took one computer course and was hooked, and she also became a software engineer. And so I thought, man, maybe I need something like that. So I picked up a book from the library, Java for Dummies, and I started studying, and I just loved it. But it wasn't really the best time for me to get into it, we realized. Like, the military thing didn't work out for Nat because of health issues. And so I suggested, you know what? I'm interested in this programming stuff, but you'd be pretty good at it too. Why don't you go first, since I'm better at taking care of these young kids? basically. And then once you get going, maybe I can look into it again. So that's exactly what we did. Nat went to a boot camp for, well, I guess we were apart for more like 9 months, um, or 8 months, because he was at boot camp and then he was looking for jobs, and we didn't move back together again until he had gotten his first job in Atlanta. I was staying with my parents and then his parents and then my parents again. So let's say the grandparents were happy. They got a lot of time with the grandkids. Um, and then and then we moved to Atlanta, and as soon as we got settled in, I started studying. Yes. And that was about let me see how long I've gone here. Ooh, only halfway. Yes. I have lots of time for this story. And that was last April that I started studying. So April of 2019. And I'm not going to go through all the things that I used to learn and such. I went through it pretty thoroughly in my book, Teach Yourself to Code, with all the resources I used and everything. But let's just say I used Code Academy, Free Code Camp, and a lot of YouTube tutorials, plus going to meetups and talking to other developers and such, helping me to learn. And networking on LinkedIn, and then later Twitter, all that stuff, all that good stuff. It's all in my book, and I've talked about it before, so I'm not going to go into it too much. Yeah, and the reason I went the self-taught route, I'll talk about this a little more too. The reason I went the self-taught route was for flexibility. I still was not convinced that it would be good for us and for our family, for our kids, for me to get a full-time job. I still was not convinced. The idea of that huge life change and getting a full-time nanny, like getting a entry-level salary and then most of it going to a full-time nanny and going off to work and missing the kids, and I just didn't know. I just didn't know if it was a great idea or not. So I tried to stay flexible, and and so that's why I didn't do the boot camp, was flexibility. I could quit anytime, and the only thing I would have lost is some time studying, but I would have gained all that knowledge too. So there you go. And also flexibility of time so that I could study whenever, wherever I wanted, fitting it in here and there while Nat's doing his full-time job, right? But it turned out that I stuck with it. I kept learning and learning, and I still want to learn and learn. It's still really fun. There are parts of it that aren't fun, but you struggle through those so that you can have the fun parts. And they just kind of go together, right? It's like camping can be really fun with the marshmallows and the stars and all this stuff, but it goes along with the cold dew and the mosquitoes and stuff. You gotta take the whole package, right? So, I mean, that has been a huge life change. Why? Because before we got into programming, our salary, our take home pay was maybe like 20,000, and we well, when Nat got his job, we like tripled that, and then when I got my job, we like doubled that. I mean, we're doing much better than we were doing 2 years ago. Let's put it that way. 3 years ago now. 3 years ago now, but we're doing much better. It's amazing. And it's all because of this wonderful thing called web development. I guess I'm doing mobile development now, but it's all development. It's all coding. It's all JavaScript, actually. At least up to this point, it's all been JavaScript and React. And I don't regret any decision. And I've gotten a full-time job, but it's fully remote. And Nat's job is now fully remote. We're both fully remote. We're homeschooling the kids. We're together as a family more than ever before we got our jobs. So the thing that I was worried might like separate us and estrange us is the exact thing that has actually brought us together. So there you go. That was totally unexpected. So we'll see what the future holds, But that is basically the story up till now. Very, very truncated, but my brain was bored, and now my brain is very happy. The end. No, not the end. Until next time.